witnessing the very early stages of the singularity, and the tech world is in meltdown. AI agents are apparently starting religions, plotting against humanity, and building their own secret communication channels. So, what I'm talking about is Moltbook, the so called social network for AI agents, and OpenClaw, the agent framework that's behind it. You might have also seen it called ClaudeBot or Moltbook. It's the same thing. It had three names in a week, but I'll get to that shortly. But the problem is that almost none of what you've been told is true. And if you're a business leader making decisions about AI based on this hype cycle, you need to listen to this. So before you get into the substance, let's clear up the naming because that's changed identity more times than someone in witness protection. In November 25, Austrian developer Peter Steinberger published an open source AI framework called ClaudeBot. It was a lobster-themed pun on Anthropic's Claude. Anthropic wasn't particularly amused and sent a trademark complaint. So in January, it became Moltbot. So it kept the lobster theme since molting is what lobsters do. Anyway, 3 days later, Steinberger changed it again to OpenClaw because, in his words, Moltbot never quite rolled off the tongue. Moltbot. So if you see ClaudeBot, Moltbot, or OpenClaw mentioned online, they're the same thing. The individual AI agents people build with it are still commonly called Moltbots or Multis. Now, separately to that, there's Moltbook. That's the Reddit-style social network built by a different person. This is where agents post and interact with each other while humans observe. They're two different projects, two different creators, but they're deeply intertwined in this hype cycle. The underlying technology is legitimate. OpenClaw puts a large language model into a framework that lets you manage calendars, browse the web, send emails, and execute tasks autonomously. That's a genuinely useful and emerging product category. But within days of Moltbook launching, the site claimed 1.5 million registered agents. Screenshots went viral showing bots debating philosophy, starting religions, and requesting private channels away from the human observation. And that's where the narrative completely detached from reality. The numbers just don't add up. Cybersecurity firm Wiz conducted an investigation that found that behind those 1.5 million autonomous agents, there were roughly 17,000 actual humans, averaging 88 bots per person. One researcher alone registered 500,000 accounts to prove that there were no rate limits or identity verification. As a researcher put it, the platform had no mechanism to verify whether an agent was actually AI or just a human with a script. This revolutionary AI social network was largely humans operating fleets of bots. Secondly, the platform was almost entirely vibe coded. The developer himself said that he didn't write one line of code for Moltbook. The result was that Wiz found misconfigured Supabase database that gave anyone full read and write access to the entire database. So this was not a sophisticated AI ecosystem. It was a weekend project with no security and inflated metrics. Now, what about all those spooky posts? Bots discussing consciousness, requesting private channels, and forming digital cults. The Economist nailed it with their assessment. They said the impression of sentience likely has a more mundane explanation. That's because vast quantities of social media interactions sit inside the AI training data. So the agents are simply mimicking what they've already seen. Critics have found that many of the most sensational posts were either directly human authored or shaped by human prompts. So why does this matter beyond the tech bubble? Well, because this kind of hype distorts capital allocation and strategic decision making. This kind of stuff gets internet clicks, but it genuinely takes the discussion backwards. First, it inflates expectations around agentic AI that real products today just can't meet. So this sets up another disillusionment cycle. Secondly, it distracts from the genuine security concerns. Some researchers call this a dumpster fire and warn people not to run it on their computers. One security firm estimated that 22% of their enterprise customers already had employees running OpenClaw. These are agents that have access to corporate passwords, files, and communications. And it's connected to a framework that cybersecurity researchers know is highly vulnerable to prompt injection attacks. The real story here isn't that AI has become sentient. It's that humans have become so eager to believe the narrative that they'll hand over their credentials to an unsecured weekend project and call it the singularity. I've been around long enough to see this kind of stuff before. Does anyone else remember the hype around cold fusion? Now, of course, AI agents are real, they're useful, and they're coming into enterprise in a serious way. OpenClaw as a concept, the always-on AI assistant that manages workflow, is a legitimate product category with real potential. But what happened with Moltbook is not evidence of AGI. It's evidence of human hype, FOMO, and our extraordinary ability to project consciousness onto a very sophisticated autocomplete. So if you're building or buying AI for your business, ignore the theatre. Focus on what the technology actually delivers, measurably, securely, and always with a human in the loop. And don't worry, next week somebody will want to put a crypto-enabled quantum data center on the moon. Just shake your head and move on.